Continuing our journey analyzing Ichigo Kurosaki's character in Bleach leads us to his adventure in the Hollow Land called Hueco Mundo. If you've missed the 2 prior chapters of this Ichigo series, please be sure to look at the tagged videos and they will lead you to my Soul Society and Arrancar Ichigo videos. As you would know if you saw my prior video on Arrancar Ichigo, the Arrancar arc was a very intimate internal arc for Ichigo where he struggled with extreme depression. By the end of that arc, Kubo had positioned Ichigo in a place where his mental psyche was as strong as it's ever been so far in the show. Ichigo was confident in his skills and abilities and felt very comfortable in his own skin. The Hueco Mundo arc functions as a litmus test for Ichigo. Having undergone his training with the Vizards and overcoming depression, it's time for Kubo to put Ichigo to the test, and that is what Hueco Mundo accomplishes for Ichigo. You will find that when you observe Hueco Mundo as a series of character tests for Ichigo, the trajectory for Ichigo's character direction becomes incredibly clear. His is a series of deconstruction and construction of his character arc catered towards crafting Kubo's idea of a perfect Ichigo. And in this arc, Ichigo perfects the art of logic and instinct. When Ichigo, Chad, and Uryu enter Hueco Mundo, they are very relaxed about their entire journey. Some would even accuse them of not being smart enough about the situation. Surely there should be some kind of meeting to discuss a plan. The last time Ichigo and the others entered a new world in pursuit of another, they had Kisuke and Yoruichi to come up with a game plan for them, and Yoruichi was infield throughout the entire process. But here, they're on their own. Fortunately, Ichigo's blind confidence does pay off when he meets the young Arrancar named Nao, who leads them to Las Noches and gives them valuable information about the dangers that lie ahead. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is Ichigo's battle with the Privaron Espada, Dordoni. Ichigo meets this clash and assumes that he needs to save his Bankai only for the Espada and Aizen, but as he quickly finds out, this mission will not be so easy, and he ends up taking needless damage against Dordoni when he could have ended the battle in a single swing if he Bankai'd and holified. And we know this to be true because Ichigo proved that a holified Bankai transformation would one-shot a released Zanpakuto Dordoni. And so, if he had done that from the start, he would have saved himself a lot of trouble. But ultimately, Ichigo passes this litmus test. There was no despair, only naivety and a lack of perspective. He moves further with Nao and runs into Ulquiorra Schiffer, who comes with news that Rukia Kuchiki is dead. This is one of the more unique opportunities in the arc because Ulquiorra doesn't just come with hearsay. He explains that all Espada have a link that lets them coordinate and that Rukia and Espada number 9 killed each other. Despite that, Ichigo does not believe Ulquiorra and seeks to verify Rukia's safety himself. This is yet another test he passes. Remember, the underlying theme between the Arrancar arc and the Hueco Mundo arc is that it is preparation versus testing. In other words, Ichigo has undergone mental and physical increases and this arc is putting his progress to the test. So not only does he wish to not waste his energy in useless battles, he also doesn't want to attack Ulquiorra since Ulquiorra has not hurt any of his friends. But as you know if you've seen or read Bleach, the moment Ichigo finds out that Ulquiorra is the one who abducted Orihime, he viciously attacks Ulquiorra. So let's tackle this battle next. Ichigo has learned from his mistakes when he battled Dordoni, and not only does he go into Bankai immediately, he holifies on top of that. Ichigo is presented with yet another test when Ulquiorra overpowers him in this fight. He's slammed through buildings and has Ceros fired at point blank range, but as opposed to how he reacted back in Karakura Town, Ichigo now is unshaken. If you remember, when Ichigo fought against Yami and the tide of the battle turned in Yami's favor, Ichigo wilted. When Grimmjow put the beat down on him, Ichigo shrunk yet again. Kubo set that precedent that when Ichigo was faced with an unbeatable enemy, he withered and shrunk into his shell. But here in Hueco Mundo, as proof that Ichigo's psychological state has indeed improved, he stands in defiance against Ulquiorra. Despite knowing the vast difference in power, Ichigo has not given up the fight. He's incapacitated by Ulquiorra, and when he's later revived by Orihime, he is challenged to singles combat against Grimmjow in what is yet another test. Consider this for a moment. The introduction of Ulquiorra and Grimmjow serve similar purposes in that they exist as a source of Ichigo's fears and despairs and are an obstacle for Ichigo to overcome. The first battle Ichigo had against Grimmjow was a battle fought without instinct, simply logic. You have invaded a town that is under my protection, and I am bound by my duties and my responsibilities to stop you. I don't know you, and I have no innate desire to fight you. I do so because it is my job. That statement is Ichigo's relationship with Grimmjow at the start. It's born from logic, and he loses. But then after battling White in his inner world, Ichigo learns instinct, the desire to seek battle. not for some logical purpose, but simply to seek battle in order to dominate your opponents and gain power. To reiterate, the first was logic with no instinct, and then after that was instinct with no logic. But what you find here in his battle against Grimmjow is a reconciliation of the two ideologies. You see, Old Man Zangetsu and White Ichigo have different perspectives on how they want Ichigo to be. Old Man Zangetsu is logical. If Ichigo continued to be a Soul Reaper, he would inevitably run into dangerous situations, and by aligning himself with the Soul Reapers, he would have to be killed by Yuha Bak. His motives are to protect Ichigo, but they are also enacted by his logical perspective. White Ichigo, on the other hand, is not interested in logic, only instinct. He wants to protect Ichigo as well, don't misunderstand that. He just believes that by developing instinct, Ichigo will become strong enough to defend himself from any opponent. These two different ideologies represented in the warring embodiments within Ichigo are reconciled here in this battle against Grimmjow. Grimmjow accuses Ichigo of coming here not to save Orihime, but rather to seek battle for himself. Grimmjow asks Ichigo, if this were truly about saving the girl, why didn't you grab her and run? This isn't about the girl. You're here because you want to fight me. Now, is Grimmjow wrong here? No, he's not all wrong, but it's only half the story. When Orihime calls out to Ichigo and her feelings reach him, Ichigo has a bit of an epiphany here. He tells Grimmjow that you're right, I came here to fight. I came here to defeat you, Ulquiorra, and Aizen. But it's not merely a pursuit fueled by instinct. It's also fueled by logic, in that I'm not here to only beat you, but to save my friend and make sure that all of us make it out of here alive. He reconciles these dueling perspectives into one that has the characteristics of the other. This is what allows Ichigo to be himself, if I can phrase it that way. Because at the end of the day, I don't believe it's worth it for Ichigo to live a life dictated by either White or Old Man Zangetsu. I don't think it would be right for his character either way, and it seems that Kubo understood that, which is why he wrote Ichigo to take on the ideologies of both of them and merge them together, so that Ichigo is able to confidently combine logic and instinct, to be able to seek battle but still not fight for himself, to be able to seek power without being driven by selfish ambitions. That is the beauty of Kubology. He asks Orihime to heal Grimmjow's wounds, and after defeating Grimmjow, he makes sure to grab him in midair. When Grimmjow wants to continue the battle, Ichigo drops his weapon and convinces Grimmjow to stand down, telling him that he's willing to fight Grimmjow anytime he wants. And then, when Noritora tries to kill Grimmjow, Ichigo protects him. This is the unison of logic and instinct, and this is where Kubo was trying to go with the instinct subplot. But anyway, we fast forward and Ichigo runs into Espada number 4, Ulquiorra Schiffer. Ulquiorra is the biggest test Ichigo faces in Hueco Mundo for one simple reason. Ulquiorra is not looking at Ichigo as a person, but rather as an embodiment of an ideology he wishes to disprove and destroy. He's fighting Ichigo, but his true battle is with Orihime and her connection with Ichigo. And that makes things a little complicated. I'll explain why. Ichigo has overcome the depression caused by the fear of losing himself to his hollow and the troubles that come with it. It crippled his ability to simply function, and he wilted in the face of strong opposition. But because Ulquiorra's fight isn't really with Ichigo, but rather with Orihime, the success and failure of this battle isn't dependent on Ichigo as much as it is Orihime. Ulquiorra can try his hardest to get Ichigo to despair, to give in, and to give up. But it's not just about Ichigo, it's about making a point to Orihime about despair and desperation. So it's not about gaining the satisfaction of seeing Ichigo despair. It's actually about gaining the satisfaction of seeing Orihime despair at the sight of seeing the man she cast all her hopes and dreams onto crumble, fade away, and give up. And it makes things complex because to Ichigo, his success or failure is what decides if Orihime despairs. And so they battle atop the canopy of Las Noches. Ulquiorra unleashes his Murcielago, he unleashes Cerro Oscuras, he unleashes Segunda Etapa in his Lanza del Relampago, all in an attempt to make Ichigo despair. But Ichigo stands his ground. To the very end, Ichigo does not give Ulquiorra the pleasure of seeing him despair, even as Ulquiorra held him up with his tail wrapped around his neck. Kubo has kept Ichigo consistent with the theme he laid down. Once Ichigo took care of his internal issues, it didn't matter whether he won the fight or not. Ichigo refused to give in. Ichigo does not despair unless his internal framework is compromised. But Ulquiorra blows a hole right through his chest and releases him onto the sandy dunes of Hueco Mundo. The moment that ensues after this is an extremely powerful moment. The one who comes to his aid here is not Old Man Zangetsu, it's White. But White isn't the same here. And I'm not talking about his appearance, I'm referring to his purpose. If you go back and look at every moment prior to this where White has taken over Ichigo's body, you will find that the trigger is that Ichigo's life is in danger, and his reaction when he appears is not one of anger. He's never angry. He's just here to promote chaos and thrive off instinct. When Byakuya asks him who he is, he says, "I have no name." Because what good does identity do between two people who are about to kill each other? Against Yami, when he speaks to Ichigo and says switch, he's not angry. In fact, he sounds cocky. Against Hiyori, who put Ichigo's life in mortal danger, when he awakens, he chokes her out with a smile on his face because he's here on instinct. But here against Ulquiorra, it's different. This entire video essay is permeated with the dichotomy of logic versus instinct. Old Man Zangetsu is to logic as what Ichigo is to instinct. But observe what happens in this scene. Even though Ichigo's life is in mortal danger, the trigger is him hearing Orihime's voice crying out to him. And you just hear his words resound within his soul saying, "She's calling me. I hear her. I have to get up. Get up. I will protect you." And White Ichigo responds to this call for help and transforms, but this time, things are different. There's no cockiness. There's no speech. There's no taunting. No laughter. No mockery. No chaos. There's destruction, 100% there's destruction, but there's no chaos. If anything, Vassal Ichigo permeates only one emotion: anger. Look, I have seen Ichigo training in the Dangai, and when White Ichigo showed up then, he was cocky. He lifted up his mask and he spoke. He was the White you'd expect. But here, White is angry and you see it in his eyes. He doesn't speak to Ulquiorra. There's no showboating, no cockiness. He simply destroys Ulquiorra. Why is a being driven by instinct, who has previously responded to mortal danger with cockiness and insanity, responding with anger this time? Ichigo's life was in danger back then, but he never acted like this. And the answer is quite simple: Orihime Inoue. But not just Orihime. It's not just the fact that you could draw a parallel between Orihime's relationship with Ichigo and White's relationship with Masaki. It's the fact that he's responding to a logical outcry from Ichigo. It's the fact that he's fighting not because of instinct, but because of logic. He's fighting because Ichigo wants to protect Orihime. Logic. He's fighting because Ichigo does not want Orihime to despair. Logic. He's fighting because another woman Ichigo cares about is about to despair at the hands of a hollow. Logic. He defeats Ulquiorra, restores Ichigo's life to him, and Ichigo now is shaken. When he witnesses the destruction caused because he lost control, Ichigo falters yet again. His internal balance is now broken and he's flustered, but it's not the same as it was previously before. Before, Ichigo had no remedies. He had no game plan to help him alleviate the situation. But here, he does retain the ability to holofy. He's just scared of what might happen if he flies off the deep end. When he saves Rukia from Yami and holofies, he immediately dispels the transformation and his eyes tell a painful truth. He's scared and worried about what might happen if he loses control again. This positions Ichigo to have yet another deep look within himself and continues the cycle of construction, deconstruction, and construction again, with every step tackling a different issue about Ichigo's mentality. This is Hueco Mundo Ichigo, a sole embodiment of logic and instinct. Hueco Mundo arc Ichigo is thrown into the fires of enemy territory and tested to his very core. He makes mistakes and he learns from them. But within those triumphs and failures, Kubo is slowly knitting together a character who we can relate to, one we can understand. Human life is a life of preparations and tests. You mature psychologically, life tests you. Maybe you fail, and maybe you fall. And you were then tasked with analyzing your mistakes, picking up the pieces, and ascending to a higher level than before, only to meet yet another test, and another, and another, and another. And we, just like Ichigo, fall into this very human cycle of construction and deconstruction, with every failure being a building block for our inevitable triumph. Kubo's message about logic and instinct is that just like many things in life, the answer lies in the balance between the two. This is your boy Rebirth. Please If you enjoyed this, do hit that subscribe button. If every one of you who actually likes the analysis hits subscribe, we can grow this community and I can get some of these videos up for you faster than before. Bleach is coming back and I want to do big things when the anime comes back. I really appreciate the support, you guys. It's your boy Rebirth, road to 15K. Let's get it.